This is Push Button Influence, where the world's leading influencers candidly share their exact strategies for maximizing reach, accelerating growth, and generating massive exposure, all by leveraging the power of new media. You can become the next Larry King, Oprah, or Howard Stern. All you need to do is broadcast your brilliance. Push Button Influence teaches you how. Here are your hosts, Alex Mandossian and Steve Olsher.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So after you take over the mic here, my man, Mr. Mandossian, I will go to the earbuds. But welcome to, another awesome edition here of Push Button Influence with the one and only Alex Mandossian and the one and also only Johnny Lee Dumas. And this is going to be awesome. Really excited to have you on. So, Alex, I'm going to take it over to you while I put in the earbuds.
Okay, awesome. We always start with a word because starting with a word kind of sets the tone, and we have to answer why it's the word. So I'm going to start with commitment. I got a mentor who taught me over the years, and some of you know him if you came from my tribe, that passion doesn't produce commitment. It's commitment that produces passion. You need wood first, then you got the fire. So we're going to talk about podcasting. We're going to talk about growth. We're going to talk about fundraising and sponsorships and as many props as humanly possible for John Lee Dumas today. But what I want to talk to John about, if you're okay with it, is commitment, because you're committed to a daily podcast. You're committed to your students and your podcast followers. But I want to talk about a commitment where you make a commitment, let's say on a battlefield where most of the people watching right now have no idea what that's like. And on tour, you can't keep the commitment because of things beyond your power. And that's really, I think, has defined the level of commitment you have in the civilian life that we have today. So can you speak to that, whatever you feel comfortable, in that realm?
Well, I think one thing that you know about me, Alex, is that I pride myself in being as open and as transparent as possible. I'm just a big believer in that. I feel the more human, the more open, the more connecting that we can be, the better as entrepreneurs in general, especially in this amazing online space with Blab and with Periscope and with Snapchat and all of the above. And by the way, guys, thanks so much for all the props.
Quit it!
Trying to beat Simon Sinek at 30,000. Whoa, what are you doing, Steve? This is a combined effort right here. So, let's beat Simon Sinek at 28,000. That would be amazing. But Alex, I know what you're speaking to. When I was 23 years old, I deployed to Iraq as an officer in the U.S. Army. And it was 2003. I was in charge of 16 men and 4 tanks. And before we deployed, I made a pledge to every mother, husband, father, wife, whatever significant other was there at our going away ceremony, that I was going to bring their loved one home. And I really meant that pledge. And I really thought that I would be able to carry through with that because we were and still are the best military in the world with the best equipment, with the best officers and the best leaders and all of the above. But the reality was different. During the 13 months, I actually lost 4 of my 16 soldiers. They made the ultimate sacrifice to this country. And it was incredibly hard for me at 23 years old to have to write those letters home, to have to had break that pledge. And that is quite the hard reality that I had to face at that age. And I knew at that point, number one, that I was committed going forward, that I was never going to live a life less than what I was willing to do, because I'd seen these great men, and they were men because in an armor unit back in 2003, it was a men only. They've since integrated, which is really great to see. But at this point, I saw the ultimate sacrifice these men had made and the future that they weren't going to be allowed to have. And I made that commitment at each one of their coffins during the funerals that we held for them in Iraq, that I was going to really lead the life that was really most up to my capabilities. And I wasn't going to settle for anything less. So when I committed back in 2012, almost 10 years later from that time in Iraq, to a daily podcast, I felt the strength of that commitment to Fire Nation, to my listeners, and to myself, but also to those 4 men who had given the ultimate sacrifice, because I knew that this was something that could give a lot of inspiration to people all around the world. And here we are about 3.5 years later. I've stuck to my commitment. I haven't missed a day. I actually just published right before we talked tomorrow's episode because I'm updating daily right now because of the Kickstarter campaign that we have going on. So I just uploaded tomorrow's episode. So tomorrow will be another day that I haven't missed for now over 1,175 episodes. So it's been quite the commitment, quite the journey. We're generating over 1.2 million listens per month and growing. So thank you, Fire Nation, that's out there who's listening right now. And thank you for all these props. I'm almost at 10,000. And again, the goal is to beat Simon Sinek, who had 28,000 during the Blab. So let's keep this going, guys. We can do this together. The power of community.
Nice. All right.
Steve, what's your word, buddy?
Yeah, and it's really, really interesting that you brought up, obviously, your background and being in the military and how hard that must have been. This word, I think, applies not only to, of course, the business world, but also to life. And this is the word that I have, which is, go this way, which is detachment, right? And I chose that word because I wanted you to speak, John, to detaching yourself from outcome, because so many people would have given up. Let's just talk about the podcast first and foremost, because you didn't get to where you are now overnight. I mean, you probably had 400, 500, 600 episodes in the bag before things really started, popping for you. A lot of people would have given up just a long time ago. So you must have had some degree of detachment from that result, from that outcome. So can you speak to that both on a personal level and also on a business level?
So one thing that I saw in life, like leading up to my launch of EO Fire, was the fact that those people who I admired and those people who I saw having the type of success that I wanted were playing the long game. They were playing the marathon. They weren't going for that quick win. They weren't going for that quick success. They were in it to win it. Like, I'm a big fan of Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. I read a lot of what they do. I have Poor Charlie's Almanac right behind me. It's a great read. I love that. And one of the things that he talks about so much is, it takes 20 years to build up a reputation, and it can take 20 minutes to lose it. And I'm kind of paraphrasing there, but I really always believed in that and knew that for me, like, this was the long game. EO Fire was the long game. And I knew that it was not going to happen overnight. I had no broadcasting skills. I had no online presence. I had no Twitter account, Facebook fan page. I was starting from scratch, from square one. So I had to go into it from the long game and detach myself from what that instant success looked like. I'd come from jobs where I could go, in real estate, where I could go out, list a house, sell it, and get a quick check for 15, 20K, whatever that might be. And like, that's a quick win. But that wasn't what I was looking to build. Like, I was looking to build something special that could really impact the world on a positive level, much more so than I was able to do in my prior careers. And, now with EO Fire being listened to in over 145 countries every day, it really is doing that at a massive level. And it took me detaching myself from short-term success to look at the marathon and to look at the long-term vision of what I'm looking to build here with EO Fire and that ripple effect that I'm looking to create.
Let's talk about Warren Buffett for a moment, because he doesn't ask why, just like Simon does, Simon Sinek, who you are going to beat. We're going after 100,000, by the way, for profit. we are going to do it because you got 15,000 in 8 minutes. So we're going to do it. All right. I've already asked for it too. So come on, you guys. So I'm not going to prop you while I'm talking, but Warren Buffett doesn't ask why. He doesn't ask what. He doesn't ask how. By far, that's one question he doesn't ask, is how. He doesn't ask when or where. He asks who. Who am I going to get to run my company? And Charlie, who do you got calling? And so as a result, many people overlook the importance of who. Oh, it's just another vendor, or just a partner, or I can get an online business manager. How important is it for you to have a really important second in command to run EO Fire as a who? And the people that you get involved, how do you vet those folks? Because that is not something that people look at. They look at content, they look at exposure, but they don't look at developing a team like friends of ours like Evan Pagan and others like Ryan Dice, who really favor a world-class team. Bill Barron also comes to mind in that regard. So how do you vet the who? And let's start with your second in command. Who would be number 2 in the company?
So my number 2 is a classy lady who Steve was hanging out with on Monday nights at our Freedom Journal launch party, Miss Kate Lynn Erickson, who's actually in the room behind me, out in her office, working away as always. And one thing that I kind of really want to focus on and share when you kind of asked this question about the team and my second in command and the who is the power of knowing what your strengths are. Amplifying those strengths. And this is something I'm really, really keyed up on right now is I know what I'm good at. I really know what I'm good at. So I want to focus my time and energy where I'm good. I want to get from good to great and from great to amazing. Like that's where I want to spend my time. And that's where my time is best served. So many people in this world, and specifically entrepreneurs, spend so much time trying to fix their weaknesses or trying to get from being crappy at something to being at okay at something. Nobody wants okay in this world. So if you're going to work hard to go from crappy to okay, it's a waste of time. It's not worth it. Focus on things that you're amazing at. What are your strengths? What are the things that you bring to this world that's unique that other people can't bring in the same way? And then you find people to bring on your team who have strengths where your weaknesses are. So you can just leave your weaknesses alone. Let them fester, let them rot, let them die. Who cares? I have so many weaknesses that I don't even think about or care about because I have Kate on my team whose strengths are in those weaknesses. I hire virtual assistants and we have a designer who's on retainer for 40 hours a month. I have a web developer who's on retainer for 35 hours a month. You know, I have a CPA. I have a team that I'm putting together piece by piece that where I'm weak and where I aren't and I'm not spending my time the most proper ways possible, I have people filling those gaps. So just really sit down and just think about what are like the 2 or 3 things that you bring to this world that are most valuable and set your days up to amplify that. And that's where you're going to go, again, from good to great. And that's where you want to be. You want to be great in this world.
Yeah, no, that's beautifully said. And if you're just joining us here, we're talking to Johnny Lee Dumas of Entrepreneur on Fire. Obviously, if you're listening to the podcast, this is you've been listening since the beginning. But I'm talking about those who are just joining us on Blab Live. And the beautiful thing about joining us here live on Blab with our guests is you get a chance to ask questions. So if you're just joining us for the first time on Blab, welcome to Blab. There is an opportunity for you to put the /Q, which will give you the opportunity to post a question, and we will see those questions. We will answer those later. If you put them in the chat box, it's not as easy for us to follow those questions. So if you have a question, post them with the /Q. We will try to get to as many as we can towards the end of the session. But we broadcast every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, and honored to have Johnny Lee Dumas today here of Entrepreneur on Fire. So, John, what I wanted to ask you is when you first started out, did you ever think that you would hit 7 figures with this? I mean, be honest, man.
Great question. And, you know, I have no problem talking about the 6 figs, the 7 figs. I'm all about generating revenue as an entrepreneur. That's how we continue to amplify our greatness and continue to do what we need to do. So that's the topic I love sitting on. One thing I do want to mention first, I think somebody has to tell Simon Sinek that it took 9 minutes for me to blow out of the water his 28,000 props.
Yeah, 35,000 and counting. Not that anybody's paying attention to what's down there, John. No one's looking at that.
I'm paying attention.
I'm paying attention. We're going 100.
I'm seeing people that are actually future guests of EO Fire who are giving me props right now. That's what I'm seeing.
Nice.
So, guys, thanks for all these props. It really does mean a lot, and I'm definitely taking notes. So, thank you for that support. And also, you know, it is so important as an entrepreneur to really look at the financial side of your business and not to be ashamed of it or not to shy away from it. And that's why I publish monthly income reports, because I want people to, number one, see our successes and emulate those, but number two, to see our failures and our mistakes and avoid those potholes, because we make plenty of those every single month. And we really get into depth about them on our income report posts. So when I launched EO Fire, I'll tell you straight up, like, I expected this to be a successful business. I went into it to create a successful business. My goal was to create a very viable and revenue generating business. I quit my job. I launched a podcast. I saw dollars in my future. Now, the dollars were, again, in my future. They were not my focus. For 6 months, I did not even make any attempts to generate revenue. I focused on creating free, valuable, and consistent content for 6 months. That was it. That was my focus, to build an audience and then let that audience tell me what their pain points, their obstacles, their struggles, their challenges were, so that I could create the solution in the form of a product, a service, a community. I mean, my friends, your audience will guide you into where you should be generating revenue. My audience told me to launch a mastermind. I did. That was 5 figures a month. My audience told me to launch a podcasting community, Podcasters Paradise, which is now over 2,800 members and $3.5 million in revenue. They told me to launch Webinar on Fire. I did. And this is all me creating for them. And then they said, hey, John, what is something that we can actually have, that we can hold in our hands, that's going to get us to where we need to be? We're sick of everything just always being in the cloud, always online. And that's where the Freedom Journals come in. So it's been that progression of me listening to Fire Nation. So to answer your question directly, Steve, I did not see EO Fire being a 7-figure business so quickly. I wanted to grow it to that at some point. Things did happen faster than expected. I will say, I was hoping for it to be a low 6 to mid 6-figure business at some point in the first couple years, and it succeeded. I mean, we're over $4 million in gross revenue in 2015, and we're probably going to be at those numbers or higher in 2016. So it's been a great ride.
I'm going to challenge you about revenue. I think you're not about revenue. You are about profit, dude. I have not seen profit margins like that. I mean, JLD, what he does is he publishes his gross revenue and profit, and something that's inspiring to me is not his revenue column. It's his profit column. And I don't see profit like that. So you got to part the curtain. How do you create profit so close to revenue?
It's the new world we live in. I can tell you right now. I mean, you see behind me, where I'm at. I'll give a little flip up right here. I mean, I'm in my living room here in San Diego. I've enlisted my girlfriend, Kate Erickson, to be on the team. We have 5 great virtual assistants, but they're all based in the Philippines, and actually one's based in Pakistan. And we pay them incredibly great wages for their cost of living, and they are thrilled to be part of the team. But everything that we do is with a focus, is with a purpose, and with a passion, and is looking to amplify our message out there, but utilizing and leveraging these great mediums. Like you guys are leveraging Blab and podcasting. Like I'm leveraging podcasting and other mediums as well. Like there's just this great opportunity that we have today, because the gatekeepers are gone. There's nobody that says, yes, you can come and join my radio station for 5 minutes and say, no. It's like the gatekeepers are gone. You are your own gatekeeper. And this is that world that we live in. So my profit margins are huge because the opportunity is huge. And that's what I follow, is the opportunity. And, we just make sure that, so we can give back to great organizations, like one of my favorite Pencils of Promise right here. I'm proud to share that, I just wrote my first check for $25,000 of 2016 for Pencils of Promise. I wrote another one in 2015 to build schools in developing countries. And that's what we can do when we, focus on the revenue, focus on the profit. And first and foremost, put everything in front of that, is focus on the value that you're giving to your audience, your listeners, your followers.
Yeah, great point. Let's jump into some podcast specific questions that I know a lot of people, look, podcasting is still somewhat in its embryonic stages, right? I mean, it's been around for a long time, but once Wi-Fi goes into the car, now that we're able to plug our devices into the receiver and we can drive and listen, I mean, it's like a whole new world that's going to open up to podcasters. The medium itself has been around for a long time. Those who are in the industry know that, but for a lot of folks, it's brand new. So there are people who are looking to get into the game and maybe start their own podcast. And one of the questions that comes up quite frequently is the different types of podcasts that you can do. Now, you do an interview-based program, right, where you bring in others. You sort of, I guess, for lack of a better term, you kind of borrow that credibility. You borrow that authority. Now you don't have to, but at the beginning, that's kind of where everything stemmed from. But can you talk about, I have a couple in mind, but I'm just curious from your perspective, what are some of the other options for programming that people can consider other than an interview-based show?
So I did start with an interview-based show because of that very reason you just alluded to, because I had no credibility. I had no authority. I had no audience. I had to leverage the value that my guests could bring to the show because I had no value to share. I had to leverage the audience that my guests could bring to the show because I had no audience. And I just had to leverage, the ability to have a conversation that was actually worth listening to. So all of those things led to me initially launching an interview-based show. And I'm really glad that I did. And the format has just worked so well that I've just done it for now the last 1,200 plus episodes, and counting. But I'm a huge believer that there's some great opportunities out there for a mix or difference than just an interview-based show. I love those shows that are out there that are just Q&As. Like, for instance, Pat Flynn has a great podcast called Ask Pat, where he just has his listeners call in, leave a question, and then he just answers it. And it's a great way for him to interact with his audience in a powerful way and leverage his time. So he's answering a lot of people's questions that they have, but in a very leveraged format where he can scale his time and knowledge and get it out there. I also love when people just have a topic-based podcast. One that's great is $100 MBA with Omar Zenholm. Is actually 2014 iTunes Podcast of the Year because he just does 10-minute lessons where he just has a topic and then he crushes it for 10 minutes, $100 MBA. And what's amazing about that is that now you can, as an entrepreneur, skim through his subject titles and whatever ones make sense for you. Like maybe you don't care right now about trademarks, so you skip that one, but maybe you really do care about incorporating an LLC. So you get into that one and other things. So I love that style. But I will say my favorite at this point is actually kind of a marriage of all three, where you're willing to, as an entrepreneur, interview people, because I think it's great to bring people onto your show and to share their knowledge and to share their influence and to also have the ability to leverage their platform when the interview goes live is a great opportunity. But then also, and so say that's a Monday show. And then on Wednesdays, I'd love to see a Q&A show where you come on and you're actually answering somebody's question in your audience. So you're engaging your audience, you're having them interact with you, even if it might be kind of in a time displacement where they just leave a question via SpeakPipe or something like that. And then on Fridays, you can just have a topic. Maybe it's a rant that you want to talk about. Maybe it's just a word that you want to expound upon, like commitment or detachment. It could be any of those things. Because what's beautiful about that is now you're a variety show. And when you're on the Monday show and you're the interview host, all you're doing is really just facilitating a conversation. You're turning the spotlight away from yourself into somebody else, which is powerful. But then on Wednesdays and Fridays, you're turning the spotlight back to you. And now you're having a very intimate and one-on-one conversation with somebody, your listener. And it's not like they're a fly on the wall to your conversation with somebody else, but it's just you two. It's you and them. And that's why I actually started doing my little weekend jammy jam sessions on EO Fire. It's just bonus sessions on the weekends where I answer a question because I like bringing that back to EO Fire, that kind of one-on-one intimacy. So that's where I was focused.
When we were at a mastermind in San Diego, we're sitting across from the table and we're assisting each other. And I remember one thing you said after over 1,000 interviews, nearly 1,300, right? You said there's one thing that keeps coming up again and again. And there's one thing that creates success in business people that you've heard again and again. And I think the journal has something to do with it because we were talking about that. But what is that one thing that you've seen as a pattern? That's question A. And question B is, why don't people?
Great question. I love it. And I want to share with you guys, appreciate everybody in the chat giving me props. We are 65% of the way to 100,000 props, which I'm pretty excited about. So keep giving the love. I am noticing, respecting, and appreciating you for doing that. Good karma is amazing. So one thing, and Alex and Steve, I've both had like separate conversations with you about this, that, was a big part of the last couple of years of my journey where my listeners, Fire Nation, coming to me via email, social media, and asking me, John, you interview all of these successful and inspiring entrepreneurs. What is their one secret to success? What is that magic bullet that they have? What's their secret sauce? And that question used to frustrate me because I would say, my friends, there's no shortcuts. There's no secret sauce. It's hard work. That's what leads to success. Now, that is true, and that is a reality. But I also was frustrated with myself because I wanted to come up with a better answer that could actually be helpful as well, besides just, work hard, which is very helpful and true. And I took another step back and I said, there's one major commonality that all of my guests share. they know how to set and accomplish goals. And that's why they're successful entrepreneurs. And my listeners, God bless their souls, that are struggling right now, those that are, and some aren't, but some are, but those that are, struggle setting and accomplishing goals. And I wanted to create something that would fix that. And for me, it wasn't just going to be something that could, be lost in the cloud or get an app on your phone or be a PDF, on your folders. Like, I knew it had to be something physical, something special, something beautiful, something that you could be proud of. And that's when I started really just game planning the Freedom Journal and what that would look like and what would be inside and what would be the goal. And, that was back in January of 2015. So almost a year to the day, this has been in the works. And that's why I'm so excited to come on today and to just have obviously conversations with you about podcasting and business entrepreneurship, but also to talk about what this journey has been like for me, the Freedom Journal. And it's been a year in the making. It's been, speaking of team earlier, like it's been a team to get this going. I mean, I have a crowdfunding expert, a book launch expert. I have a team called product.com who actually went to the manufacturing plant to oversee things to make sure that everything was perfect about the Freedom Journal before it went to final print. And those 20,000 copies that I printed, were exactly what I wanted. Like, I wanted this to be perfect and beautiful. And so the Freedom Journal is now here. It is live. It is exactly what people need as a tool to set and accomplish their number one goal in 100 days. I'm so excited and I'm so proud of this. And I'm going to stop talking now for a second because you can see I get a little carried away, but there's obviously a huge component, to this that I'm really excited to talk about as well. But the Freedom Journal is for Fire Nation and for any entrepreneur that knows that they have a big domino in their life they need to knock over, and they haven't for any number of reasons. Well, believe me, with the Freedom Journal, you will accomplish that number one goal in 100 days, and you will knock over that big domino, and it will be amazing.
Steve, can I ask one more thing very quickly?
I will allow that.
Thank you. I've talked to Brian Tracy about this, whom we both know, and when you ask people in a group, hey, who has goals? And most of the hands go up. And many people think they have goals, including yours truly, but they're really wishes. They're not goals. So just speak maybe less than 2 minutes. What's the difference between a wish and a goal? Because I think people have more wish than goals, and wishes.
So I like that you gave me a 2-minute limit. Like, that's good. Like, I need those kind of limits. So thank you. And guys, thanks for the props. Holla, proper props. So many people, you'll hear this time of year specifically, they'll say, oh my God, the holidays, me included, by the way, like, I need to drop a few LBSs. I want to lose some weight. And that's where it stops. So that's kind of a wish, because what that is a specific goal, but that's all it is. And a SMART goal, which is something that I teach within the Freedom Journal. Again, didn't make this up. This has been around for a long time. That's why I know it works. A SMART goal has 5 attributes. The first one being specific, and that's where people usually stop. I want to lose weight, and that's it, and they never accomplish it. A SMART goal is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound. So now what would a SMART goal sound like if I rephrase it in this way with I want to lose weight? Well, I want to lose weight, specific. Okay. I want to lose 10 pounds, measurable. That's SM. Attainable. Is it attainable? Yes, I know it is, because I've been down to 160 before. I know I can get down there again. I know it feels great. Is it relevant? It is relevant to my life, because I want to drop a couple LBSs. I want to look better. I want to feel better. I want to have more energy. Is it time bound? Yes, it is with the Freedom Journal. And that's why I've created this journal of 100 days and being very specific. So now you have a SMART goal, and now it's just the execution of that, which again, we guide you through in these 100 days.
Nice, man. And obviously we're going to give you ample time to talk about where people go. I mean, we've been talking about the Freedom Journal. It was awesome to be at the launch party on Monday. Great job with that,
man. Thank you for being there.
Yeah. And you were over 78,000, almost 80,000, I think, by the time that fiesta was over. Where are you at, just out of curiosity, right now before I ask my question?
128.
Nice. Awesome. So 50% bump even since Monday. That's terrific, man. All right. One more question on the podcast front, and then we've got some phenomenal questions here from the crowd as well. And Alex, I'll defer to you in terms of when you want to jump into those. But one of the questions that I have is, I do a show called Reinvention Radio, right? And my show is, let's just say it's a little boisterous, it's a little in your face. We kind of morning zoo it. We've got co-hosts and other people that drop in, like Rich Ote and Mary Golay is my co-host, etc. It's not for everybody. I mean, we have the explicit rating because, we can get a little vile, we can get a little, blue, etc. And there are people who write in and they say, great content, but we could really do without the first part of the show. Or, gosh, you've got all this crap before you get to the gold, right? And it's just like, you're going to get that from, doesn't matter what you do. How do you defend, or how do you recommend people think about just doing who they are and not worrying about creating something that they think others are going to like, or try to, bow down to the wishes of the, of the people, if you will? How do you address that?
So there's kind of a lot of things I want to go through here, and I'll go through them pretty quickly. But number one is we need to realize the reality that we are all standing upon the shoulders of giants. Like, people have come before us, they've done great things, and we've all learned from them, whether we like it or not, whether it's been via reading books or seeing them on their podcast or whatever it might be. Like, we are all standing on the shoulders of giants to some level. But it's critical that when you are standing on the shoulders of giants, that it's actually you that's standing on those shoulders, and it's not you mimicking the person that you're standing on. And so I've seen, with the success of EO Fire, there's been a lot of podcasts that have come out that have, really tried to mimic exactly what I've done. And honestly, those shows probably would have found success had the person just said, you know what, I see why EO Fire is successful, and I like the format, and I like the energy and all this stuff. But I'm not John Lee Dumas. Like, I have a different personality that has some better things and some worse things, but it's my personality. And I'm going to come out and do a show that's me. That's my personality. And I'm going to make it work for that. So really just saying, hey, what is that UVD, that unique value distinguisher, that even though there's a lot of noise out there in this world, and there's a lot of people that I'm learning from and that I'm going to take a lot of greatness from, what is my unique value distinguisher? Like, when I launched EO Fire, I learned from Andrew Warner. I learned from Pat Flynn. I learned from David Siteman Garland, from those who have come before me that had great shows interviewing entrepreneurs. But then I added as much JLD as possible. I added the 7-day a week aspect. I added my format, which was, very unique. I added that. And then I really just tried to be myself. And it was tough. I had to find my voice, and it took me a couple hundred episodes to really do that, because I'd never broadcasted before. So that takes time to find your voice. But you really need to say, hey, I need to be me. And then when you sit down and when you know who your avatar is, who that perfect listener is, and you just create your podcast being you for that perfect listener, you're going to get people that email you and say, hey, I wish you wouldn't do this or that or that. And I get that all the time. And I say, listen, I'm sure there's other shows out there that don't do that. Those shows might be for you. But, for the 1.2 million listens that I continue to get and grow upon every month, it's resonating with somebody. So I'm not going to make a big shift because of a couple emails that I get per month. And that's how people should really look at that, because you need to know in your intuition who you are and what's best for your avatar, your perfect listener, viewer, reader, whoever that might be, and create through you for them.
Yeah. Alex, can I ask one more quick follow-up question? Thank you. So John, to that point, do you believe that you have to find your audience, or do you believe that your audience will find you?
I'm truly a believer in the space of podcasting that your audience will find you. You need to continue to focus on putting out your great content, working on the quality of your show, getting the right guests, talking about the right topic, answering the right questions, really knowing who your perfect listener is, and then let them be attracted to you. Because when you know who your perfect listener is and they find you, they're going to spread the word for you. They're going to tell their friends who have similar interests to them and who want to rock your podcast and listen to it, and it's going to spread like that. Now, that's not saying don't get out there and do the work. I mean, if there was and there are, by the way, like let me just give you a quick example. If I had a podcast on fishing in Northwest Canada, I would launch a podcast. I would know who my avatar is. You better believe that I'd also would get out there and hustle and find those couple Facebook groups that are public, that are thriving, that are free, that are all focused about fishing in Northwest Canada. And you better believe there are some, because there's groups for everything on Facebook. I would join that group. I would join that community. I would know that everybody in those communities are part of my tribe. They're my avatars. And I would start by just being a person of value for 30 days. Every day I would get in there ask a question, answer a question, provide support, provide guidance. And then after I've proven myself as a person of value, I've been in there for a while, I'm a committed member. Every single day I'm there. Then when Joe says, hey, I wonder what are the best wading boots, I'd be like, oh, interestingly enough, I had a podcast episode 4. I talked all about the different wading boots that I recommend. Here's a link to that. And then now not just Bob, but everybody else who has that question, which will be that entire community, will flock to your podcast and becomes fans, followers, and subscribers, and then tell their communities. And that's how you build it. Number one, for your, through yourself, for your perfect listener, and then do the work as well. But in the podcasting world, your listeners will find you, believe me.
Okay,
Nice.
Now, thanks, Steve. Great question. And we've eclipsed 101,000 props. So, Johnny, what can I say? Someone has a lot of prop. What do you call it? Like
Somebody's
cramp.
got a hand cramp right now.
All right.
Prop tunnel.
Let's
Have a new word.
people ask, with our Blab, we have a format, and we ask questions, we have a word, and we have predictions. So we're at the prediction stage. I'm going to ask you what your prediction is for podcasting in 2016. So get ready for that question, because I just asked it. But I want to answer one question that a lot of people have. By the way, when you're interviewing someone, folks, that's a really cool way to get your guest to think about the question, because he didn't know it was coming. So you see that there's an open seat in our Blab. And the reason there's an open seat is when we go into the green room, when we stop record, and those of you inside this Blab and watching, the questions are going to pop up in that open seat. So we use it in a very, very creative way that Steve created. It's almost like a little whiteboard. Everyone will see the question that you've asked. And then John will answer as many as he can. We'll keep them on as long as we can to the top of the hour. So here's the question. Prediction. Where is podcasting going in 2016? It is at an inflection point. There's some kind of inflection happening where it's a hockey stick growth. I feel it building, even though it's been around for a while. Where do you feel it's going? And try to detach yourself, using Steve's word, even though you're in it and you're successful. Where would you say, from an aerial view, podcasting will be in 2017, January 1st?
Yep, I am a little prejudiced for sure, but I will try to detach myself from this. But at the same time, just be realistic. Now, number one, I have no illusions of grandeur. Podcasting is on fire right now. It is super hot. It's the thing. It won't always be. Who knows how long it will be the thing, but it is on quite the rocket ship right now for sure. I mean, when you see Obama going to Mark Maron's garage to be interviewed, when you see Shaquille O'Neal and Leah Dunham starting podcasts, I mean, Stephen Colbert, it is getting crazy where we're going. And what's also been insane as well, and this is part of my prediction, that podcasting is going to continue to go through the roof, is because of things like, what Steve mentioned earlier. I mean, no longer do you even have to plug into your receiver when you get into a car. Every car that rolled off the lot in 2015 has Apple CarPlay, has Stitcher Dash. It has it right there. So you turn your car on, you're synced up Bluetooth, you're automatic, and the podcast you want to listen to is coming through the car speaker. So the last barrier is gone. Spotify, Pandora, they've both come on board, and they are just rocking and rolling. These are two massive platforms that are both opening up to podcasting, and people are clamoring for it in a great way. There's industries being built off of podcasting. I just said the word clamor. Clamor's one of them. Clamor's and other companies like that. I mean, Blab. There's things that are coming that are being successful because of the podcasting influence and because of the leverage that you can do within these platforms. So I am saying, if this was like a recommendation on a stock, like buy. Podcasting is going up through the roof. It's gaining way more listeners every single day than there are producers joining the fray. Believe me. So if you have considered starting a podcast, like, now is definitely the time. January 1st, 2017 will also be an amazing time. And just keep your eyes and your ears open, because things will shift, things will change. But there is one thing I kind of want to end with here is podcasting, in my opinion, will for a long time hold a very unique space. Now, to be frank, what happened in Meerkat? Meerkat came out, boom. You had Periscope pop up. You have things like Google Hangouts come up, boom. You have Blab come up. There's all these things that could be like coming in and competing for noise and for space and screaming and all these different things. But podcasting just has this very unique area where when you're driving in your car and, when you're running along the bay and when you're folding laundry, it has that space where you can consume the content because you can say yes to listening to a podcast without having to say no to something else. Like right now, if people really want to be engaged with us and watching our video and doing what we're doing, they got to kind of be here sitting and they're giving me props, and we're at 105,000 props now. Love you guys. But podcasting gives you that opportunity. When I go for my walks every single day, I'm listening to a podcast. I'm there. That's my time. I'm not doing anything else. And I really find it hard to believe that something's going to replace that anytime soon.
Yeah, great question. And there's going to be a number of folks here, because I've already seen it a few times, who are just going to be absolutely ready for you to talk about the monetization piece. And we will get to that. But I don't want to ignore sort of the elephant in the room, if you will, which is that whole, what's that thing called? Oh, yeah, Google. That's right. So Google got into this whole arena recently with Google Play, right, which is a new thing. So can you speak to your take on what happens when they get involved, which they now are, and whether or not that's a platform that people should be aware of and even consider being a part of?
Yeah, it's definitely a platform that people should be aware of. Google's massive. And when they go into something, they kind of like have a little test market, and then they see if it works, and then they go big. And that's where we are right now. They're kind of in the test market. They're seeing if it makes sense. And then if it does, they're going to go big. And actually Spotify is doing the same thing. It's just they're showing 1% of their overall usage in the podcasting. So this is going to be an interesting test phase. It'll be really interesting to see what companies like Google and Spotify and Pandora decide to do coming up in the future with this. And if they say yay and dive full into the podcasting world, that's going to be some pretty good indications about where we're going.
Nice. All right, Alex, any other questions before we jump into the crowd here? And there's some awesome questions being posted.
I think we're good to go. Just give the directions on how to get the questions into the question.
Yeah. So, and John, we're going to speed round this stuff just so we can get to as many people as possible. So if you can keep your answers to about 6 seconds, I think that'll just about do it. So if you guys are curious, and yeah, I know, right? So if you're curious about how to put a question over there on the left side, it's a /Q, and that will get you into the question and answer queue, and we will get to as many of these as possible. And again, if you're listening here on the podcast, it's one of the awesome reasons to join us live so that you can participate here. And today we've got Johnny Lee Dumas, along with Alex Mandossian and myself, Steve Olsher. Let's jump into some of the questions. All right, so we're going to put it here on the right side. John, I know you're very familiar with this.
Yeah, let's stop the recording, Steve. Let's stop the recording because these are people inside the room.
Okay, well, then that's a great point. That is the benefit of joining us live, is not only do you get to ask your questions, but you'll be able to hear the answers to the questions. So you're right. Let's call it a wrap here. We're going to move back into the green room for Push Button Influence, which means we're going to stop recording, but we're going to continue on here with Johnny Lee Dumas of Entrepreneur on Fire and the Freedom Journal. But before we jump into that, I want to make sure, Johnny, you have an opportunity to tell people where to go to get the Freedom Journal, the Kickstarter campaign, so that we have that recorded on the podcast. Where do people go? What do they do?
Awesome. Thank you for that. So thefreedomjournal.com, that's thefreedomjournal.com. That'll take you directly to the Kickstarter campaign where you can pledge, get your Freedom Journal. We have some killer rewards there. And every time we hit a funding goal, I'm writing a check for $25,000 to Pencils of Promise to build a school in a developing country. So you're giving yourself the gift of accomplishing your number one goal in 100 days and the gift of education to those less fortunate. So let's do this together. I've already written one check, my friends, and it feels amazing.
Yeah, and if people want to pay you a lot of money, Johnny Lee Dumas, where's the best place for them to get to you?
eofire.com.
And Steve, make sure we get that in the notes up front so people see it before they have to wait this long, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. We will put that in the notes up front and center. All right, so we're going to wrap the podcast version here. We're going to go into the Blab green room to answer some questions. So we're going to have more here on Push Button Influence with Johnny Lee Dumas right after this. So thank you, Alex Mandossian. I'm Steve Olsher. Thank you, Johnny. And we will go into the green room now on Push Button Influence.